Because it is not just motorists being crushed, small retailers are being crushed too. Independent retailers gave the Office of Fair Trading evidence in January, proving that there is anti-competitive pricing and that 300 smaller forecourts are being forced out of business every year, leading to the petrol deserts in some towns. The fact is that most smaller petrol stations are forced to buy from just a few large oil companies at massively higher prices than their own brand stations on the road. I give the way to my honourable friend.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and he's making a very important point. And doesn't he think that it's quite telling that in 1991 there were 19,247 petrol forecourts in this country, and as of last year there were 8,480 petrol forecourts, despite the fact that car ownership, or the number of cars on the British roads, had actually gone up by 10 million.
Well, my honourable friend describes the tragic, I would say a tragic situation, because when you lose local and rural petrol stations, you don't just lose the petrol station, you lose a vital community asset. But could I give special thanks to my honourable friend, because if it was not for him and his backbench committee, none of us would be here today and be able to debate this issue. I give way to him.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. Can I tell him that on 2 occasions the OFT have looked into garages in Caithness for precisely the reason that he has set out? On both occasions have found it is not the small local garages, it is the distribution centre between the oil companies and them. I'm therefore delighted that he's initiated this debate, and we're finally going to get, I hope, to the heart of the problem.
Yes, I am in complete agreement with my honourable friend, and he is exactly right, and this is why it's very important that all of us today give evidence to the Office of Fair Trading to try and force an inquiry. I'll give way to the honourable gentleman.
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way, and I was one of the signatures in support for him to get his debate today. And last year I actually raised this issue about the oil prices, because I had been down in Cornwall the year before and I noticed that oil tankers were lined up, and I'm glad we're going to have an investigation, as it were, into these cartels, if there is cartels, and at the fixing of oil prices. But more importantly, in towns you can have different petrol stations having different prices for petrol, but more importantly, this feeds through into the cost of living. That means that people's cost of living gets cut, whether it be bus fares or whether it be the price of food because of transport costs. And I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman for that information and for the support of this motion, because, as he rightly says, this affects every man and woman in the country. For those who don't use cars, they go on buses, and the bus prices have gone up because the price of diesel has gone up too. So he is exactly right. I'm going to carry on a bit, if I may. Now, slowly these smaller firms are squeezed out of business, and then the own brand stations put their prices up. Exactly the same kind of anti-competitive stranglehold sometimes exists in pubs, and we've all heard in the House the stranglehold some of the big brewers have over pubs. Now, in my constituency of Harlow, some garages are charging 140 pence for petrol and 140 pence for diesel, a full 10 pence more expensive than the cheapest forecourts in the UK. Now, the same complaint was made in Germany about five oil wholesalers who are active in the UK. Germany's Federal Cartel Office acted quickly and opened a criminal investigation. Why can't we do this here in Britain as well? Austria have actively started regulating their fuel markets, and the AA has noted the impact of this in keeping fuel prices down. If the oil companies have nothing to hide, they could opt for open book accounting and be much more transparent. I'll give away to the honourable gentleman and then
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way and congratulate him on this debate. As he outlines these practices, I wonder if he has noticed the practice of offering cut-price fuel 2 days a week at retail outlets, where often they've managed to make that true whilst at the same time offering fuel at a higher price than it was only a week ago. Isn't this kind of excessive volatility in retail prices deliberately designed to confuse motorists and to make it as hard as possible for them to shop around for the most price-competitive fuel?
Before the honourable gentleman takes that further intervention, there are lots of people who are trying to intervene who aren't on the speaking list, and lots of people on the speaking list who may not get to speak if this opening remarks take too long. So I hope that the honourable gentleman will bear that in mind. Robert helpful.
Well, could I ask those who want to intervene, who are not speaking, just to make very short sort of interventions, and those who are speaking not to intervene? Now, let me just carry on a little bit. So we've established that fuel is more expensive than ever. Yes, because of tax, but also because of anti-competitiveness in the oil market. We've seen that cheaper oil is not being passed on to motorists. But third, there is allegation of price fixing. And this is a core part of the debate today. And this means that even if the oil companies were doing the right thing, the hedge funds and speculators are rigging the price of oil to keep it artificially high. Many academics and financial journalists have said this is happening. In a groundbreaking article in the Daily Telegraph, Rowena Mason showed how oil price benchmarks are unregulated and, like LIBOR, vulnerable to manipulation. The petrolpromise.com dossier shows how the Consumer Federation of America has the same concerns, as has Deutsche Bank, professors at MIT, Maryland University and the LSE. Bloomberg have investigated how banks are buying up strategic stocks of oil and hoarding them on ships at sea or in underground silos. Finally, a whistleblower who trades the oil futures market has contacted petrolpromise.com and given us a detailed statement how the market is rigged. And this is very important. I urge my honourable friends to listen. He says, "I trade the oil market on a daily basis, and every day the price is manipulated. Not just the daily benchmark price, but the calendar spreads that make up a large part of the daily volume. All through July, for example, there has been a massive buying pressure on oil futures for August and September 2012. This gives a false impression of the market and inflates the price of the nearby oil price." He goes on to say, "One part of the problem is the lack of market transparency. In the oil futures market, huge volumes are offered and then withdrawn without trading. There is no reason for this behaviour other than to distort market prices. And unlike stocks and shares where large holdings have to be declared, in the oil market nobody knows where the money is coming from. Prices are particularly manipulated at the close of business when markers are set on an average of trades in the last 3 minutes of the trading session. Every day around these times I see that the structure of the market is being moved to bring prices in line with the trading books of whoever is manipulating the market. This is in order to fix the price and make sure a profit is shown on their books." It is a long statement, but I wanted to put the key parts of it on the record. Given what the Madam Deputy Speaker said, I'll take one more intervention from the Honourable Gentleman.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend, and I pay tribute to him for his long campaign, which I fully support. Residents and businesses in my constituency in Swindon are frankly bemused by a system that is not a free market because it is not open and transparent. And until we get that transparency that he is so clearly adumbrating, we will not genuinely achieve success for those who we represent.
My honourable friend is exactly right. The key issue is transparency, and that is why I and all the MPs who've signed today's motion are asking for an investigation, not just by the Office of Fair Trading, but by the Financial Services Authority as well. Now, last year, President Obama saw the same problems in America. He took action against rogue traders and banks and brought in tough penalties, including prison for people convicted of illegal market manipulation. We should do this in Britain too.
That's interesting as well.
So in conclusion, it would be churlish of me not to welcome the modest steps taken by the Office of Fair Trading. I'm grateful that they've agreed to hold an inquiry into whether there should be an inquiry. Although I note that when I first wrote to them earlier in the year, they were less interested. Their chief executive wrote to me saying that even when we are able to investigate an issue, we may not necessarily do so as we prioritise our work according to available resources. And that was Sir Humphrey's way of saying no. But I'm pleased they are inching towards a full investigation. My hope is that this debate will allow MPs to tell the OFT what is happening in their patch and what the problems that residents are facing. The FSA have agreed to meet with the whistleblower, so this will happen in due course, and I urge them to take further action. In terms of my questions to the Minister, will he write to the OFT and the FSA setting out his concerns and reflecting what members say this afternoon? Will he investigate this issue of anti-competitive pricing and how oil wholesalers are bankrupting retailers? And will he look at why some towns, like Harlow, seem to be stuck with stubbornly higher fuel prices than everywhere else? Now, some of this debate is technical, but we should not forget that this is not, as I said, about the economy. I'm here today because I believe in social justice, and I believe that the high petrol and diesel